Hey, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everybody. And welcome to day one of the Productivity Enhancement Challenge. This is our evening call. Super excited about today because we're going to be talking a lot about, today is all around conditioning and mindset. Now, some of you that are listening in, firstly, a couple of rules here. This is streaming through StreamYard, and you'll see like a little box. Okay, so just accept their little T's and C's, and then you can put your name in into the StreamYard box and making a comment. So I was going to say, use the comments, the comment box or the comment section if you have any questions. So we'll have questions. We can make this interactive or as interactive as possible. I have lots of questions anyway. All right. So I'm super excited about today because we have a really good friend of mine who I've been collaborating with over the years. I've known Chris for quite a number of years, and he is, for me, he not only does he knows his stuff, but he also a lot of the things that he talks about makes complete sense. And I don't say that in a derogatory way. But, he was worked with some top companies, with some athletes and stuff like that. And his expertise is all around looking at limiting beliefs and fears and mindset and stuff in particular. And what I really like talking about, that's what we're going to be talking about today with Chris. So he certainly knows his thing. So if you have any questions, if you are listening to the recording and you want to ask Chris or myself a question, then what we'll do is we will put up some details about how you can connect with me and Chris at the end. So we're streaming this through YouTube and also through our Facebook group as well. So without further ado, drum roll, please. It's Christopher Salem. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Adam. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Wonderful day. It feels like spring here in New York. It's 61 degrees in February. This is pretty remarkable.
That's crazy. I mean, yeah, I never like talking about the weather because it's been so depressing this year.
Oh, God.
But
yeah,
anyway,
I could side with you on this one, but today I'm telling you, I feel like going outside. I tell you, it's wonderful.
That's amazing. So again, thanks very much for being on tonight's call. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man. So what I was going to say is, I know that we've spoken quite a lot of times, and you've spoken to quite a few people especially over the last few months, actually, and we've had some really interesting conversations, haven't we?
Oh, yes.
And but actually, one thing that I really kind of want to delve in quite deep with you on this one, and something which is kind of, for me, it didn't really occur to me until quite recently. And especially being a speaker and a coach and consultant, similar to, we both have similar backgrounds and stuff like that, is this kind of scarcity mindset, right?
Yeah.
Because we all talk about mindset, right? And we always talk about the importance of mindset and stuff. But what is the difference, okay, between someone who has I'm going to call it a poorly conditioned mindset and a scarcity mindset? Because there are big differences, I think. But maybe you could give me your opinion and tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, basically what it is that when somebody has more of a mindset that, let's say what you had just said compared to scarcity, again, it's the difference in how we think. So if we're one that's thinking abundantly and with prosperity, we're thinking with a growth mindset versus a scarcity mindset would more be associated with a fixed mindset. So it's
Right.
Again, what happens with a fixed mindset is that we get caught up in the things that we can't control. We don't trust the process, and a lot of things that we feel that we're just not capable of doing. We're not capable of making enough. We're not having enough. And again, it just comes down to how we think. So how we think is what we become. So these are the things that, again, when somebody's looking to make a shift, before you could actually shift behaviors and the way you communicate and other things that would be necessary to build yourself into receiving more and being more is that we got to correct how we think first, because obviously that's going to play an important role in setting that foundation.
Okay, that's very cool. So okay, but what are the things? So you talked a lot about behaviors there, right? But what are the things that someone who has a scarcity mindset? What are the sort of language that they use, especially when it comes to whether it be running a business or, you know, it doesn't matter. But what sort of language do they use? Is there any kind of similar patterns?
I mean, a lot of times if they think that that problems can't be solved. I mean, or they can manage problems. They can maybe put a Band-Aid on things, or they're not capable of doing certain things. These are the things that they tell themselves. Like, a lot of this stuff is beyond their control, or they're trying to control what they can't control. So again, getting back to not trusting the process. So these are the things that are internally are happening. They may not, of course, be saying this to their coworkers or to people that work for them or friends, family, but these are the things that they're telling themselves. And this is what eventually becomes reality, because again, they start to engage in things that lead up to that, more codependent behaviors that more or less reinforce that into reality.
Okay, cool. That sounds good. Because I know that when you talked about behaviors, now I know that we've had previous conversations around habits as well, and have you noticed that with regards to a scarcity mindset, for example, are there certain habits that people follow that prevents them from sabotaging themselves from success?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, again, you got to look at what you do at each every day. Is it serving you or not? So a lot of times there's certain things that people just don't have consistency with, certain types of habits that could serve them to get them more laser focused with the priorities that matter. A lot of times people that are caught up in a scarcity mindset will, get caught up in busyness, right? But it's not productive. If you were able to really start to analyze the things that they're busy at, you would find that none of it really aligns with the priorities that matter, that would lead them to a more prosperous mindset, so to speak. So it's, again, a lack of habits, lack of discipline, not being consistent, these types of things, not having a strategic business or life and business strategy in place that they can follow. Everything is kind of just going through the motion, shooting from the hip, so to speak.
Right. That makes complete sense. It's interesting because and I'm sure that you've had conversations, in the past when especially when you're speaking to people, maybe after a speaking event, or if you're sitting down with a prospect in particular, right? And saying you're giving them an opportunity, and I've had this before, you're giving them an opportunity to work with you because you know that they have something, and you want to give them something which could help them take them to the next level. But then one thing that I notice is that they come up with and I love using this word, excuse-itis.
Oh God, yeah.
Right? Excuse-itis. But do you think that having excuse-itis, do you think that leads to a scarcity mindset?
It does, because there's always going to be an excuse to kind of justify in their mind the area that they feel like they're lacking.
Yeah.
So again, instead of taking ownership of that and looking at the things that they are good at, and maybe looking at resources or systems that can help offset those weaknesses, that in time could change the way they think towards scarcity versus prosperity. So again, excuses again are just a byproduct of worrying about something that hasn't happened. It's created in the mind. That raises a level of anxiety. Then obviously we experience that through the worry, and it's the worry that leads to procrastination and excuses, why people use the excuses to justify it.
Yeah. And how what sort of advice do you have for people that have that kind of mindset? I mean, how is it? Because I see those common mistakes that they sabotage themselves to success. But is there anything that you would have in terms of like golden nuggets or whatever it is to help them to overcome, or that kind of, I'm going to call it excuse-itis, but I'm going to call it scarcity mindset for the sake of it?
Sure. So again, I'm always a firm believer in operating in the solution rather than the problem. We live in a society where
Absolutely.
we manage problems, right? The pharmaceutical industry makes billions of dollars a year managing problems. So, but always know that you, when we say you, I mean people in general, you are the problem and the solution simultaneously. So
Right.
if anybody's going to solve your problem from a scarcity to a prosperity mindset, it's you. Now,
Yeah.
it's not that you can use great resources like Adam here, myself, as kind of like ways to gather this intelligence and this information or a methodology,
Yeah.
but you got to own it as it applies to you. But just because it works this way for Adam and this way for Chris
Mm.
doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the exact for you. It might be a form of that methodology in and around what works best for you that will work. So the
Mm.
key is to get to the root cause of limited beliefs, because it's those limited beliefs that from childhood subconsciously that creep into certain situations. I call them triggers. And it's
Mm.
those triggers that bring up these things from the past subconsciously. That
Mm.
generates fear. That fear gets projected into the present moment and then into the future. That's when the future we begin to say in our heads, well, this is not going to work because
Mm.
this didn't work last time, or only certain people are cut out to make that type of money. I'll always live paycheck to paycheck. I don't have those skills. These types. So we already project that, and obviously that creates a level of anxiety that then
Mm.
allows us to experience that through worry. And then worry is what obviously leads to procrastination, excuses, and so on and so on. So we got to get to the root cause
Mm.
of those limited beliefs, and it's often tied to your childhood, to a particular parent, mother, father,
Mm.
or some type of authoritative figure that played an instrumental part in your development growing up, either in a good or bad way.
And you talked about, because it's interesting, because I love talking about limiting beliefs with you, actually, because you have such a great, insightful, in-depth discussion about it. But I was going to say to you, actually, a lot of the people, I know that a lot of people that are doing the challenge in particular, they're all on different journeys, right? But let's look at the person who's in a full-time job that's maybe got, say, a side business, right? They're going to be very different from, the full-time entrepreneur, the one that's got a full-time business type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all different types of journeys. So let's look at the first one, which is the part-time hustler, as I like to call, right? Have you seen any, because they have the lack of experience and that kind of stuff, do you feel that there is a commonality between people who have got less experience, whether it be an entrepreneur or business owner, and people that are more experienced or whatever it is? Do you feel that they are able to make more breakthroughs as they become more mature? Or do you still feel that, maybe that a lot of people still hold on to that excess baggage as they go along? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I believe it's the excess baggage. I mean, don't get me wrong. Having experience and knowing your area of expertise is important. But just think about it. I'm a big sports fan, so I'll use American football as an example, right?
Yeah.
You could have a team that has first round talent. I mean, so there's no denying that certain players on this team are first grade when it comes to their talents and skills. But
Yeah.
that in itself is not going to win championships,
Right.
because a lot of times with players like that, they may have great skills and talents, but this isn't developed, and this is what can either shorten a career where someone doesn't perform to the level they're capable of because this isn't right. This is why sometimes there are teams that have average talent, or maybe these are people that weren't even drafted, but yet they were able to adopt different mindsets and being coached very well and be able to be utilized in areas that play to their strengths rather than weaknesses, in a more interdependent or interdependent environment rather than codependent. So it wasn't just individual players doing their own thing, but coming together. And those are the teams that won Super Bowls and what continue to keep winning, not necessarily with the best talent. So it really comes down to here. This is where you win. You win here first. Everything else is just a byproduct of what's going on here in terms of how you use if you're an athlete, using your body, if you're a business person, using your skills. But the skills in itself are not sustainable. This is where the difference is. So whether if you're a part-time hustler or a full-time entrepreneur, again, I've seen people that have been part-time that had this right, been able to scale businesses part-time in a short period of time just because they had this right versus someone that was doing it full time that did not. So these are the things that are the difference.
Now, I know that you've done a lot of stuff even in the sporting world, and even though you're a big sports fan anyway, have you, I was going to say to you actually, what's, I'm going to call them success mindset principles, I suppose.
Sure.
You know, what is it that entrepreneurs and business owners can learn from those successful athletes, and what is it that you need to do in order to create, or what I call condition the mind?
Yep.
Because that's what it is. It's a form of conditioning, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, success is consistency of what you do each and every day that leads to the desired results that you seek. So when we talk about consistency, when you have athletes that continue to win, you know, in the Olympics, you know, each and every year, every 4 years, or are on winning teams, or constantly just play beyond their, you know, their level. It's because, again, of the consistencies of certain habits and disciplines that they do each and every day. And many times these are things that really have nothing to do in itself with what they do. So I'll give you an example. Like with myself, you know, I'm an executive coach. I'm a trainer and a speaker, that type of thing. I have a private lending business, and I have success in these areas, not because just because you know, that I'm, you know, I have knowledge in there and I have experience, but it's, again, I attribute that to my success foundation. That is every day waking up at 4:15 in the morning, meditating and journaling, exercise, reading a chapter or two out of a personal and professional development book. These types of things, you would say, well, what does that really have to do with success here or here and here? It doesn't have to be direct. It's just, again, it's a foundation. It's these habits and disciplines that I do 7 days a week, 365 days a year, that keep me consistent and focused on the priorities that matter in the business that I chose, or any nonprofit, or anything in my community, in my marriage, and with being a father, all of the above, that keep me consistent. And if it wasn't for that foundation, I may not be consistent in those other areas that I just talked about.
Cool. Guys, if any of you guys are listening in, by the way, and you have any questions, feel free to use the comment section. I was going to say to you, actually, because you mentioned, there was something that you mentioned there. And the thing that came to my mind was self-discipline, and the importance of self-discipline. Now, you're an extremely you are extremely disciplined in your habits. You know, you have routines. By the way, do you get up at 4:15 at the weekends as well?
I do. You know, it's funny.
That's
Adam,
crazy.
I was just in California. I was just in California a couple of weeks ago for a couple events and Oscar Gala things. I went for my nonprofit. And I was up at 1:15 in the morning, California time, because it was 4. But then I was able to force myself to go back to bed. But nonetheless, it doesn't. I've been doing it for such a long time. I'm up. So the key is that if I feel like, hey, you know, I can sleep in a little bit more, I will. But typically, I don't do that unless I'm traveling, where I'm on some time zone that's just considerably off. You know, if I were in Singapore, that would be completely, it might be a little difficult, but a couple of days to get adjusted. But otherwise, I'm pretty consistent, pretty much 7 days a week, 365 days a year of that time, and doing those habits I just talked about.
Where does your self-discipline come from, and how does one develop self-discipline, right, to the point where you need that consistency?
Well, I can tell you right now that I wasn't born with it. Put it this way. So, you know, they say that leaders are born, and people are, you know, we're born with, not necessarily. These are things that you have to adopt, that you have to commit to a process that is going to lead you to the desired results you seek. It's just like if you have a beautiful home. It's not that you're just going to build that beautiful home and there's no foundation, or there's a faulty foundation. You got to build the foundation. So I knew that in order to be successful, and whatever that meant to me at the time, 20 years ago, I had to build my foundation. I had to get out of the problem into the solution. And that meant doing things that I've never done before, that at the time I did. It was the last thing on my mind I wanted to be doing. To meditate was like the last thing on my mind. I had ADHD, and I, you know, technically, I guess I still do. I don't think you ever cured, but you wouldn't know it, because these disciplines have offset the symptoms of my ADHD for years. because I'm organized, because I plan out, I have a strategy plan that I follow each and every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year. So these are the things that you just have to do it, and to keep doing it consistently, repetitively, so that they become routine. They become like now your new autopilot that now gets embedded at a subconscious level. Whereas in the beginning, you can't just say, hey, I'm going to wake up. Well, you may not. So you have to like set an alarm and keep doing it to the point where your body gets into that routine. I'm not saying that you have to get up at 4:15, but I'm just using that as an example. You got to keep doing it. It's the consistency that's key here.
Makes sense. Now, you mentioned about consistency and self-drive, because you're an extremely driven individual. But I know that people are at different journeys, right? So, for example, we've got the person that has a full-time job. They may have a side hustle and may have kids, right? And then you've got like your full-time entrepreneur that may have no kids. It depends on your lifestyle and stuff like that. But I know that you've got a son, and you've got your wife and things like that. But what would you say to the people that are, because we're all at different journeys. What would you say to the people that have the full-time job, the side hustle, and a family? How can they fit in all of these things as well as be self-disciplined?
All right. So here's the thing, and this is where people got to get true and honest with yourselves. You're never going to have to be like everyone else. Right. So if you're like, hey, I want to be like Tony Robbins because Tony's successful and he lives in Fiji and he has all these, but yet your values and principles are not 100% aligned with Tony. Maybe you want to be successful, but not to the level of what Tony is, but maybe success means to you more freedom. So it's, again, not only getting out of the problem and into the solution, like we talked about, getting out of limited beliefs and coming from a place free of limited beliefs, but it's getting true to your core values and principles. Why do you do what you do? What is your purpose? Why is it you do what you do? Yeah. And when you establish those core values and principles and begin to operate truly from that, you can define what success means to you, to develop a roadmap or blueprint to go do it. So if it means that, hey, I'm not going to make millions of dollars like so-and-so, but it means that I'm comfortable making $150,000 a year. I want to strike some harmony with having more time with my family. I don't have to be like, every, person, in my block. Success means what it means to me. When you can get really firm with that and really trust yourself and trust the process, that's when things will start to work in your favor. You don't have to be, define your success by, what somebody else's success is, or what you think, success should be. It's what you make of it, and honoring that. That's what truly is a fulfilling life of prosperity, and one that again is going to, allow you to stay focused on not only building it, but sustaining it.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. And one thing that I put down was, and it's, I don't know about you, but in society these days, is that, especially if you're a business owner, in fact, it doesn't matter, full stop, but society these days are always trying to compare yourself to other people, and you have this thing in Britain and in America, it's keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Keeping up with the Joneses. I was sitting there thinking, like, what is that word? And there you go. Now you solved it for me. I knew what it was on the tip of my tongue. I'm like, I can't think of it.
But it's so true, right? I mean,
yeah, it is.
And like the other thing was, getting I guess kind of doing something for what other people tell you to do, type of thing. Just trying to think what that was called. You know what I mean? Like when, say, your wife or your spouse or whatever it is, and they say, "Oh, you should go and do this," and you doing it because they were told you to do it, right?
I mean, people end up choosing careers or professions based upon what they've been led to believe growing up in their childhood. Hey, my mom and dad were lawyers, so I guess I'm going to be a lawyer. But really, I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to be a chef. It's not allowing. Again, these are things that happen in childhood that, if we are able to create awareness and address this at the family level, just imagine what could happen. And when children become adults, that they can finally be free and choose what's good for them. I mean, we hear people talking about that, but in reality, a lot of that is not going on. A lot of times kids grow into adults just being led to believe it should, oh, I got to get a job like this to make, in order to survive, I can't be a teacher because they don't make enough, so I got to do this.
Right.
But again, it's following your heart, following what comes from here. And a lot of times we don't have that clarity because of limited beliefs. So we got to get that done right. The process means don't put the cart before the horse, and don't get caught up in other people's agenda. Like if you go to a personal guru and they got great advice, that there's nothing wrong with that, but don't get caught up in their agenda and try to adopt it as your own. That's never really going to work. Right. You can take bits and pieces of that, how that relates to you, and ask yourself, does this really resonate with who I am, why I do what I do, what my values and principles are, and then take what works and leave the rest to apply it. That's the mistake I see people that are going to, different gurus and following their systems and then having the same results. And it's not because of the guru, it's because they get in their own way. They just think that if it's a cookie cutter program and it's going to work for me. That's not the case. And this is an individual. You got to own it. Only you can make this happen. There's no system in itself that's going to do it for you. You got to take bits and pieces and apply it in a way that you find a process that works for you to make it work.
Well, I think one of the things that you picked up there was about instant gratification.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like there's so many people that want that kind of, that what I call quick fix, make life easy type of scenario, right? And there are so many people that do that. And it's a bit like this. And it's a bit like using the irrational theory behavior. And it's a bit like me saying, well, Chris, if I give you my pair of special sprinting shoes, you are going to be the world and Olympic champion in 100 meters. Right?
Sorry about that.
Don't worry, you're fine.
I'm just sorry, but I didn't know my other computer was on, that the phone was coming in. Sorry about that, everyone.
Good. Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's a bit like that, and so many people believe in that crap, and especially when you go to a personal development, event and stuff like that. What I would say, what is your advice about people who have that mindset, that instant gratification mindset and being unrealistic?
Yeah, I mean, I put it this way. Here's the reality, right? And I'm not here to just tell you that, hey, when you're hearing me, that I'm right. You draw your own conclusion.
Right.
But in essence, think about it. There is nothing that you can buy in a box. There is no service. There is no particular person in itself that is going to make you successful. Yeah. Yes, if you associate with certain people, that will help, no question. But nonetheless, it's always going to come down to you. And making sure that you build your foundation, you come from a place that you truly operate from your level of success, what that means to you, how that aligns with your values and principles, having a blueprint or a strategy in place to follow that will allow you to embrace the process to go from A to Z over time to make that happen. And it's being consistent with that over and over each and every day that's going to lead to that success that you seek. So that it's inside, it's not outside of you. So when you get caught up in all these masterminds, and they're all great, but that in itself is not going to solve your problem. You have to take that and create a process from within to make that happen.
So I guess as I would say, responsibility, ownership, and accountability.
100%. And then, having an accountability partner, someone to keep you honest, a good coach, they're all great things that can help, so, you take advantage of those. Those could pay you dividends down the road. It's just, again, but you got to do the work. No one is going to be able to do it for you. And if they do it for you, you'll never become, just like as Jim Rohn used to say, you'll never become success. You have to become it in order to sustain it.
That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And Jim Rohn was one of my favorite mentors as well.
Yeah.
Pretty cool guy. So guys, if you have any questions, by the way, for Chris while he's here is your opportunity. Do not have fear. Chris is here. Okay. So if you have any comments around mindset and habits and limiting beliefs, because I know that we're going through this like a storm right now. Here is an opportunity to do so. And it doesn't matter. No one's going to make you any judgments. If there is something that's holding you back right now, now is an opportunity to get some expert advice about how you can overcome those mindset issues, if you would like to say. So I was going to say, you've done a lot of stuff in corporate as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I started my career working for companies back in the day, and then representing companies from a sales perspective. And, in the last, 10 plus years, executive coaching, training companies and working with individuals, entrepreneurs, sales professionals, and so forth.
Yeah.
So, yes, so I came from both sides. So I understand how companies of all sizes kind of work. I've worked, in many of them in the past, when I started early on in my career.
Yeah. One second, because I think we have okay. It says, hi, Bryony. There's a few people saying hi now. So
Okay.
what I was going to say is, there was one question I don't think I've ever asked you, actually, because I know that you've worked in corporate. Have you noticed, especially from a mindset perspective, okay, have you noticed any similarities or comparisons or maybe differences between the mindset of maybe a CEO that runs maybe an 8 or a 9-figure company compared to maybe an entrepreneur or a solopreneur? Have you seen any subtle differences in terms of the conditioning of their mindset?
Oh yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to put people like labels to say, hey, everyone. No, but I have seen differences. Just because you have maybe experience in a certain industry or a company, and you become the CEO, doesn't mean that you're necessarily now going to have the same level of success.
Yeah.
Especially early on, if you become an entrepreneur,
Right.
They're completely different types of mindsets, especially in the beginning. So these are the things that, again, that when people are making those shifts, it could be a major one. A lot of times people go into, well, I had success in my career and I worked for this company for so long, I became the CEO, and now they let me, I finally stepped down, and now I'm getting into entrepreneurship, and now it's like, whoa, this is completely different than what I thought, and all of a sudden they're not having that level of success because there are certain habits and disciplines that they didn't have in place or never had in place when they were in the corporate world. So again, it can go vice versa. So again, when you look at it, you got to look at each situation is different, and that certain types, whatever you choose, are going to require certain things and what you have to do in order to reach that level of success. And again, it always comes down to the way you think, comes down to, again, your values and principles, certain habits and disciplines that are going to, help build and sustain that success, and having a plan and trusting the process, because the process will never fail you as long as you do your side of it. Control what you can and let go of the rest. By letting go of the rest, I mean the other things that are beyond your control, but knowing that you trust the process will help you in that area to make it come full circle, that eventually through the trials and tribulations, you will reach that level of success.
Cool. Bryony has asked, she said the thing that's holding her back the most is a lack of direction and not having a clear focus.
Yeah.
I guess this is mindset stuff. So any tips, Bryony?
Yeah, I would say for what I would recommend is, again, just to recognize what are the things that are, that maybe are limiting you in finding that focus and, having that direction. If you don't know, that's okay. But just probably without, I would probably need more information, but just to let you know, again, it could go back to certain limited beliefs that go back to your childhood that subconsciously are coming up that are, interfering with the level of clarity. When we don't have clarity, we don't really know what our direction is fully, and we're not decisive. And when we're not decisive, we can't take action. So again, it's to be aware that you're not where you want to be, and that's okay, because that happens to all of us. It's now to accept where you are, but make a commitment to get to the root cause of what may be holding you back subconsciously that's leading to this lack of direction and lack of clarity, and not being able to execute on a specific game plan. So again, it's the process. It's getting, let's get to the root cause of the limited beliefs. Let's eradicate the problem. Let's create a solution with the right habits and disciplines that are going to build that foundation and then sustain it, and then come up with a specific game plan or blueprint to what success means to you in order to implement each day, each week, each month, each quarter, each year to get you to where you want to be.
That's cool, man. So I hope, Bryony, I hope that was useful. I hope that was helpful. Was I think cool. Yeah, awesome. That was very useful. Okay, anything else? Actually, you know, the other thing I was going to say, Brian, here as well, is tomorrow we are going to be going in a little bit more deeper about how to create that clarity, because we're going to be doing some stuff on the around the pitch. Pitch is going to help you give you some more clarity about that. So that's tomorrow, by the way. So just make sure, guys, because a lot of the stuff that Chris is talking about right now,
I would say, right, meditation and journaling would be the two habits that are going to help you to get to the root cause of the problem, for lack of direction, and will create your solution. Meditation, journal every morning. Journal right after you meditate. Don't overanalyze, overthink. Just write whatever comes to mind. That's going to get your subconscious mindset over time to begin to open up, to reveal where the source is, where these limited beliefs came from, and how it's affecting your lack of decision, lack of focus, lack of confidence, whatever it may be that's holding you back.
That's very cool. I like that. You talked a little bit about the conscious and the subconscious mind, right? Now, I know what that means. You know what that means. But could you just talk a little bit about how do they work simultaneously, but also, more importantly, how do they, I suppose, in a way, how do they relate to the habits and limiting beliefs in ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, think about the things that you do in each and every day. You might even take it for granted. Sometimes you don't even realize you're doing some of the things you even do every day. But that's your subconscious mindset at work.
Okay.
Again, it's the certain behaviors, the certain ways that you communicate, certain things that taking action versus not taking action, or not being indecisive versus decisive, taking risk versus not taking risk. These could be certain things, again, that are all subconscious. Again, it's the conscious mindset that allows you to kind of say, okay, yes, I can make a decision, and so forth. So the key is that oftentimes a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes are what's holding you back. These deeply rooted challenges that go back to childhood are, again, being triggered by current situations that bring that up. It raises a level of fear from the past that gets projected into the future. That creates a level of anxiety. We begin to worry. And as a result of that, we procrastinate. We come up with excuses. Why? So again, this is the pattern. This is all what goes on. This is where, people could have lack of focus, lack of direction, lack of clarity, whatever the case may be. So the key is that we got to recognize that the subconscious mindset, if we can help to bring that in sync with our conscious mindset through meditation and journaling every day, this will help us to get out, not only out of the problem, but into the solution, and to keep that communication where it's more clear, so we can begin to really look at ourselves like a third party to see where we can make changes or modifications in our behavior, with our decision making, with our relationships, whatever, to do what's best in getting to our goals.
Cool. That's very interesting. That's really interesting. I know that, guys, I've set some homework as well after this morning's call, by the way. So just make sure that if you haven't had the opportunity to listen to this morning's call, please do, because we were talking a lot about, so there were, I think there were like 4 tasks. So Chris was talking a lot about limiting beliefs. So one of the homework tasks actually is to write out 3 of your limiting beliefs or fears that you have, and 3 ways in which you overcome those. Because, I think one of the most important things, especially when you know, is to become self-aware, right, Chris? You've got to become self-aware, first of all, to see, what limiting beliefs and what fears that you have. And then secondly, is to accept, I guess, right? Accept those things. And then the third one, is, here's the other thing that I was going to say, because I suppose this is going back to the fix and growth mindset here, Chris, right? When you've got a fear or limiting belief, and I'm saying to you guys, hey, you need to find a ways in which you can overcome the challenge. Where do they need to start?
So again, it's to start wherever you are. Again, it's to know that, stop looking for that, that shiny object, which this is the problem that people get caught up in. Marketers are really clever saying, hey, I know that's your problem, but here it is. No, that stuff can still be good. But what I'm saying is, before you look into that, thinking that's the answer, you got to go within. You got to get to the problem. So everything that we talked about is what's key. It's to be aware that you're not where you want to be, and knowing that I don't need to find the answers today. I can only control what I know, and I will let go of the rest, because that intelligence will reveal itself over time when I embrace the process and I allow myself to get into a rhythm of meditation and journaling that will then reveal those answers in time. So again, you got to trust it's a process. This does not happen overnight. There's no quick fix solutions and these types of things. And once we can change our thinking around that, we can be farther on our way to get to those results, and a lot, well, I'm not going to say quicker, but yet you're going to get there quicker than the other way around when you keep looking for the quick fix, only to have to start all over again and keep repeating those patterns over and over and over, and then tiptoeing to your grave, not regretting that you trust yourself and trust the process to go about it, doing it the way that will work from within.
Another question. It says, do you do guided meditation, Chris? And if so, can you recommend any apps or videos?
Yeah, I mean, guided meditation's fine. I mean, I just like to, meditate freely on my own. There are many apps out there, things like with binaural beats, any theta wave. There's a gazillion things out there. I wouldn't recommend one over the other. It's, again, just finding something that aligns with you. I don't require any music or tones. I mean, maybe in the beginning I did, because with my ADHD, I couldn't sit down for 10 seconds without crawling out of my skin. But in the beginning, those are like training wheels. They could probably help you get relaxed, get you kind of into the pattern. So again, it's researching online to find those sources that will work best for you. There are plenty of apps out there. Just find what works best. And again, just make sure that you commit to it and use it every day, and getting into a pattern early in the morning for doing this.
Do you know what? I was on the plane last week. Well, actually, no, I just came back 2 days ago. But when I was flying to the UK last week, and it's interesting because some airlines provide free Wi-Fi, right? And then others, they don't bother, right?
Yeah.
But I was flying with Finnair, and I was like, I don't know, 2.5 hour flight or whatever it is. So relatively short. And in that period of time, it's interesting. So obviously my phone is not functioning, right? And it's interesting how we so codepend on our phones, on our cell phones. And but it was interesting how much epiphanies and how much aha moments, and just really also the because you talked a lot about the not to need to have the fact that you need to have sound and things like that, but just having silence. And having, do you know what I mean? Having the opportunity to just think without being distracted for 2 seconds of just the email or your cell phone going off or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if you've ever shared that.
Silence is where all the answers lie. It's in silence that the answers will come. You don't have to force it. That's the thing. Again, controlling what you can and letting go of the rest. Yeah. And truly trusting the process. And silence is where the subconscious mindset really communicates, where you could hear it to get those answers. And again, it's not always in words, it's in feelings and just other ways that you just know, like, I know what it is, I know what I have to do, and trusting that. And again, not going out to the outside and asking for other people's opinions, because that is not that people can't give a good advice, but they're on their own journeys. They're not going to be able. They're only going to give it from their perspective, what that means to them, not so much to you. Yeah. So again, you got to trust yourself, and silence is a great place to get those answers and to learn to really embrace and trust that process.
Cool. Guys, if you have any last minute comments or questions that you have for Chris, please put them in the comment section below. That'd be awesome. We're actually streaming this through YouTube as well, so that's kind of cool. Did I tell you, by the way, Chris, I launched this new TV show? Well, I'm going to call it a TV show because it's kind of a TV show for me, that stuck through on YouTube. So this is all kind of going on to the brand.
Oh, beautiful.
So it's pretty cool. So
send me all the stuff. I'll make sure to promote it and get it across my channels for you.
I appreciate it. So guys, if you don't have any questions or comments, then that's okay. Chris, if they want to reach out to you or whatever it is, can they connect with you? What's the best source for you?
Well, if they just want to get some more information, again, you can go to my website at christophersalem.com, ChristopherSalem.com. Feel free to send me an email, chris@christophersalem.com. Check out my LinkedIn page. We could connect there. Again, yeah. I come from a mentor standpoint. I have no hidden agenda. If you want to bounce a question off me, there's no obligation. I'd be happy to take a look at what's on your mind, what might be holding you back, maybe give you some direction and go from there.
Cool, man. And you know what I love about Chris? Chris comes from a place of value, man. I mean, he brings his A game all the time, like myself, and that's why we click so well. Click, right? We love helping value. We love helping you guys, and we love giving value to. So listen, Chris, awesome. This has been another great conversation, right? So I just want to share the love, brother.
Adam, thank you so much for having me. And it's a pleasure to serve your audience today.
Cool, man. Take care of yourself, guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.